I think a lot of the current executive orders are more political than they are about solving the sort of the broken immigration system we have here in the country. So far, quite frankly, I've seen a lot of um, actions that are just the same as that President Trump attempted 4 years ago or before. But specifically, if you look at some sort of in concert with the bill that just passed the Senate, the Lake and Riley Act, which sort of forces immigration and custom enforcement to target and mandatorily detain those that are just been charged, not convicted of sort of minimal, low public safety threat crimes like petty theft or larceny. The new administration is going to be in a very challenging position to keep both their promises to deport millions of people.
President Trump, clearly the tackling illegal immigration, it was one of his priorities. Has announced a whole series of executive orders on that, declaring the state of emergency at the southern border. What do you make of the plans and the orders that he's announced?
I think a lot of the current executive orders are more political than they are about solving the sort of the broken immigration system we have here in the country. So far, quite frankly, I've seen a lot of um, actions that are just the same as that President Trump attempted 4 years ago or before. But specifically, if you look at some sort of in concert with the bill that just passed the Senate, the Lake and Riley Act, which sort of forces immigration and custom enforcement to target and mandatorily detain those that are just been charged, not convicted of sort of minimal, low public safety threat crimes like petty theft or larceny. The new administration is going to be in a very challenging position to keep both their promises to deport millions of people, but also continue to focus on the worst of the worst, or violent criminals that take advantage of our immigration system.
And we've seen this new legislation allowing for immigration raids on schools and on churches. Do you think we really are going to see some widespread raids rounding up people who've arrived in the US illegally?
Yeah, I believe in the near term, what you'll see is immigration and custom enforcement carrying out their mission and their duty, which is critical to our public safety. But I think you'll see it in compact sort of campaigns or raids in specific cities where there's a high density of migrants, and whether it's New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, Houston, maybe Miami. But you're going to see those with collateral arrests, which means ICE may be targeting one individual that's a public safety threat, but there may be other individuals in the household that they also arrest. But again, as you mentioned about the rescission of the sensitive location directive, which all it just said was we won't target you for arrest if you're at a courthouse or a hospital or a church or a school. As you can see, the folks in the administration right now are kind of contradicting themselves a bit, as they promised over the last couple of weeks of targeting drugs and violent criminals and the worst of the worst. The idea that the worst of the worst reside within Sunday school, at church, or within third grade classrooms is absurd, quite frankly. And it's more just shows it's just carrying out political promises over the idea of actually, successfully sort of try to fix the immigration system and carry out an enforcement, process that keeps our community safe and protects law enforcement.
And one of the many other announcements that we've had from Donald Trump is ending this birthright citizenship, which means that anyone born in the US is granted US citizenship, even if their parents arrived illegally. I mean, how is that going to work?
First off, I believe all legal scholars and public, legal opinion is it clearly violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that was ratified right during the Civil War. But what you have again is these political promises just to target those that have come to this country, both quite frankly legally, and who've crossed between ports of entry and have entered the country illegally, but have entered the asylum process or other pathways that do give them legal protection to be here. Again, I always ask is when folks bring up these questions of what is the actual goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And I think a lot of supporters for President Trump will say we're trying to bring down, illegal migrant flow to the border, surges and focus on public safety, national security threats. I think that's somewhere where both parties agree in this country, but clearly these sort of directives have nothing to do with that. These are messaging directives that are just trying to tell his supporters, look, I'm trying to keep out, quite frankly, people that are different than you.
And we're already seeing that there are likely to be a whole series of legal challenges to that move to strip birthright citizenship rights. So it could be a while before that is actually implemented. Do you think, Jason, that a lot of this is about the new administration hoping that by talking really tough, announcing these threats, announcing these new powers, that a lot of illegal migrants will simply decide to get out of the country anyway?
I don't think anybody, I don't think it's going to make people sort of voluntarily remove themselves. I mean, we are an extremely wealthy country of opportunity for people to flow towards, especially as they're being pushed out of countries across the Western Hemisphere that, quite frankly, are broken nation states and are broken communities when they're violent and lawless. And people are at risk of persecution and death and rape and murder. That's why people are coming to our borders for sanctuary. And we have legal processes to protect people like that. And the Immigration and Naturalization Act of the 1960s kind of layers that out. But you get to a harder point, which is even in the first few hours of this administration, you don't see this administration tackling the broken immigration system that everybody knows in this country is broken. You don't see them tackling the backlogs in the immigration courts. You don't see them backlog or supporting resettlement of immigrants. You don't see them, quite frankly, tackling and going after the drug traffickers and human smugglers south of the border that are bringing people to the border. And you see them sort of messaging this sort of like, if we sort of in the public domain and in media make our communities and our country look so inhospitable to migrants that somehow that'll deter them. Changes in policy in the near term will make migrants adjust their pathways and how they come to this country. But as we've seen for decades, and this isn't about the Trump administration, as we've seen for decades, it's ineffective. It doesn't work. People are fleeing and trying to provide and take care of their families, and in some of these countries that are broken, they're going to continue to come here to seek refuge, and we need to work them through the immigration system. But we have to build an immigration system that meets the volume that we're seeing, and we currently don't have that.
Jason Hauser, former Chief of Staff at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Really good to talk to you.